This is the Dirshu Mishnah Berurah, Simin Yud Aleph, Sif Yud and Yud Aleph. And we pick it up from the Mechaber in Sif Yud, which really piggybacks off of Halacha, in which we saw yesterday in Sif Tes. Says the Mechaber, if the hole in which you're putting the tzitzis in is in the right place, and then it ripped, and thereby made the hole lower, now it's no longer within the right amount of area. It's too close to the edge. This was the case that I said yesterday. This is very relevant. I meant this case. This is talking about where the hole rips. The tzitzis were all made kosher. We'll see the picture in a moment. But the tzitzis were all made kosher, but then this hole rips, and as it rips, what happens is it pulls closer and closer and closer to the edge until it's so close it's within the requisite shear of the Mali HaGoydel. Says the Machaber, it's kosher. Why? The same reason why yesterday it was pasul when it went within the time, because it was made in paslas. Here it's kosher when it's made in the right way. Kivin shahaya by kashir. V'shah shitla by tzitzis is the right size when you put on the tzitzis. Hagah, says the Ramah, when the minhag is to sew around the hole, so it shouldn't rip. And it should be within the right amount of shear. And so do we make a stitching on the bottom over this reason. Says the Machaber, continuing, some say, actually before we see this Machaber, let's go. Let's just see the picture, exactly what we just learned. What we just learned is you see in Aleph that the hole is in the right place. Everything is great. And then what happens is that you see it starts ripping. It starts ripping as you see in Dalid that it rips all the way down, that the hole now is towards the edge of the beged, edge of the garment, and it's too close. It no longer has the requisite thumb distance between the hole and the edge of the garment. Said the Machaber, it's still kosher. Why? Because as you see in Beis, it was made in kashrus. Gimel's just showing you how those threads fall off, but since it was made in kashrus, everything says the Mechaber further. Yesh Aimrim, there are those that say that on the width of the beged, ein loy shear, there's no shear. You could have the hole as close as you want to the edge of the garment on the width side, not on the length side, on the width side. And some say it's the same, and that's what it seems. So it says the Mishnah Berurah that what happens when the hole rips, it rips that doesn't have the right amount. Right after you make the first knot, boom, it rips. It's still kosher, because once you have that first knot, it's kosher, and even if it rips afterwards. Now it doesn't have the requisite shear because it falls down. And so too on the other side. And now the Mishnah Berurah is explaining why is everything dependent upon the moment that you make it. One might think, wait, I'm putting on a talus and it's ripped and it's all the way to the edge. Why is that kosher? Says the Mishnah Berurah, because the pasuk teaches us va'asu lahem tzitzis al kanvei bigdeim. You should create tzitzis on the corners. Lo yikmi the Torah. What was the Torah specific in Makbid about? Elo only b'sha'asiyah. When you create the beged, that's when it has to be on the corner. But not afterwards. So if at the time of the creation, the asiyas habeged, the asulam tzitzis, it was kosher, even if subsequently it rips and it's too close to the edge, it's still going to be kosher. Says Mishnah Berurah, of course, only if it was made behechsher. Avol, says Mishnah Berurah, an important case. Let's say now you want to put a new tzitzis on the garments. You take your beged, you've been wearing this beged for 100 years for whatever which reason, and you decide that tzitzis are quite yellow. You want to change them? Great. You take off the tzitzis and you put on new tzitzis. But now that beged had a hole. The hole of the beged ripped to the edge. So until now it was kosher because the asiyas beged was made bekashus. But now when you want to put on new tzitzis, says the Mishnah Berurah, no, you have to fix it. It's a new tzitzis. It's a new beged. It's puzzle until you sew it up. Because it's Tasev Loimin Asi, the Dirshu in 68 will explain. Because if you fix it afterwards, it doesn't help, because again, at the time of the asiyah, asulem tzitzis, the beged has to be kosher. Sifkatan on Aleph says Mishnah Berurah pachas mikashir, af the b'diavad kosher mikol makom toiv la'asais kain. So says Mishnah Berurah that even though b'diavad it's going to be kosher, even if it goes all the way to the edge, it's toiv, it's good not to do this. Kadesh le'yavoah royim leimer shupasul, people think it's kosher, the kuliyama lavdina ligamiri. And therefore, you should be careful to try to sew it up and make it kosher. But it is kosher. I guess the big nafka mina would be, you don't have to take off the tits and retie it. You're going to sew up that little bit. Sivkatan and braise. Yesh aimim shabisaych, that on the width side, it does not have to be a shear. Disfirlu de ikr shem kanav. What's the main name of corner? Shaykh al safa tacht in the bottom edge shel oirech habeged, of the length. Lo reich of habeged, not in the width. What is the reich of what is length and width? Reich of if you were to hold your talis out, the width is from your head to your feet. It is the long way. By that which you wrap yourself with. When you do itof, that's always with the length. You can make it all the way to the edge. Everyone agrees it can never be further than 3 etzbais, even on the width. So first let's see some pictures, then we'll see some Dirshu. Here we go. Here you have in which the Ramah said that the minhag is to sew up around the beged, which of course we do. It's going to be hard to see, but basically, of course, we see that the edge of our beged they sew up, and the hole itself they sew around the hole in order to make it kosher, in order so it does not rip. And here you have that on the width side, as Aleph dictates, that on the roich of our beged, it could be even closer than the Kesher HaGoydel. It could be all the way to the edge, but the Mishnah Berurah says you should not do it. Here it's showing you when it rips, as we said, a very common case. You sewed it, you tried it, but the tzitzis got pulled and it ripped. And therefore, since it was made in kashrus, you see here the hole was made the right way, even though subsequently it rips and it goes all the way to the bottom, it's going to be kosher. But now it says the Mishnah Berurah, if you want to put on a new tzitzis, you want to change it, what do you have to do? You have to first fix the beged, because if you don't fix the beged, it's going to be a problem. What's the oirech and what's the reichav? The reichav, the width, is the area that you wrap yourself with. The oirech is the length. Says the mechaber sif yud aleph. After we see sif yud aleph, we'll show some more pictures and visualizations. Says the mechaber sif yud aleph. Im hagadol. If the gadol shekayrin oirliza, the erliza who roichav is very wide, lo yato by tzitzis. Don't put the tzitzis on it. Now, what is this? Before we continue, we really should just see that the Mishnah Berurah teaches us that those that say that what we're referring to is the tassels. The tassels on the edge of the beged, if they're very long. Here you see that the gimel is the tassel area. So if the tassel area is very long, the question is going to be, where do you put the tzitzis? And as we'll show in a few moments, all our begadim take care of this issue, but we'll get there in a minute. Puzzle. And if you put it there, it's possible. Dal kanfei big ksiv. Again, says the mechaber, it has to be in the corner. They don't actually have and it's not called, it's not considered the beged. It counts towards the shear of the thumb width. And the distance of 3 fingers. So you have to somehow, we'll see in a moment, it's going to be a little bit difficult because you have these wide fringes. You have to somehow figure out a way to put the tzitzis in a way that it's of thumb's width away, within 3 fingers, but not on the fringe is a little bit difficult. You should measure without that bit, says the Ramah, and as we flip over, the Ramah continues, so you should somehow try to account for all areas. Let's read the Mishnah Berurah before we see some pictures. You may have just the width without the length, you just have some strands at the end. We saw that they made tassels, but some people just have regular strands. It's a safe argument, you weave it. The krakis, which are the tassels that we saw. Whatever it is, it's very wide. It's more than the thumb's width. Either way, it's going to be possible if not. Be careful. Can't be further than 3 etzbais into the beged. Let's say the fringes This tassel area is 2 or 3 fingers wide. Yachtay mixal, so you should cut it off. You have some strands sticking out. You should cut them off at the corner. You should cut it off. Before you put on the tzitzis, you should cut off the corners. So here you have your picture of the wide fringes. Here you have the wide fringes, and you see that the picture here is showing that you should make sure it's not within the Kesher HaGoydel, and over here it's showing you, but it still should be within the Gimel Etzba'is. Here are the tassels that we have in our bag, and it said the Mishnah Berurah, what should you do? You should cut off the tassels around the corner. Now, in thought, this sounds very strange, but when you look at our talisim, this is what actually all our talisim are. Here is the talis, so you see we have the fringes, beautiful, but when it comes to the corner, maybe you never even noticed this. I didn't until I checked. Comes to the corner, there are no fringes. For the simple reason, because we have this big shiloh that if we're going to count these fringes are pretty long. Where are we going to put it? And that's where all the begadim, regardless if you have little fringes, some people have bigger fringes, whatever they have, everyone is makbid, I think, like this Mishnah Berurah, that you cut it off around the corner. Now, once we have this talus here, it'll be easier for us to see that you see that they sew very nicely over here. They do it tight, and just going back to what we learned yesterday, we'll be able to hold this up more the right way. You see over here that it is tied nice and taut on the side so that it hangs down the corner. Now one more. Now let's go to the Dirshu before we go for another visualization. Let's go back over here. So it says the Dirshu, note 66, that if you do it b'yadayim, you rip the hole. The buchacha is not sure; he thinks that's kosher, etc. In note 67, it says that va'asulam tzitzis is the creation of the tzitzis, and he discusses if you cut off something afterwards. Okay, fine. What I wanted to share with everyone is number 68, which is what we spoke about. That if you first put on the tzitzis, then you sewed up the ripped corner, it's an issue, said the Mishnah Berurah, and they quote over here. That what's the issue? The issue is tasav lo mina asui. That if you put on the new tzitzis on the beggar that has a ripped corner, and the ripped corner goes all the way to the edge, it's an issue of tasav lo mina asui. Interestingly enough, they go to the Chazon Ish, says efshir it's kosher. I guess maybe if you have das to fix it, I'm not sure why. Now, what's the roichev and what's the oirech? So the Mishnah Berurah taught us that the roichev is the from your head to feet, and your oirech is the length. And over here, the Dirshu points out that which we wear a talis katan the other way. We don't wear a talis katan. We wear a talis katan. It's tall, and we put it over our body. So that maybe now it should switch to the length. So the Radvan says the reason is, as we learned already, that you don't have to do itav li kuva. You don't have to wrap the talis katan. We said it's a chumrah if you're going to make a brach on it. And says the Dirshu further in here, note 69, and our talis gadol, we do eat the fun and a patters up our talis cotton. What's also interesting over here is that the Dirshu continues and he points out that if you can't do an atifa, it's not going to be kosher. And now we explain something that's been bothering a lot of people. We already saw, and it's going to come up again in Siman Zayin, what is the shear of the talis cotton? So we said the shear is the amount that could cover the roishe v'rubai, the head and the majority of the body of a cotton, a cotton ben teisha we saw. And many people were bothered that even if you have a sizable size beged, to wear just our tzitzis with nothing underneath wouldn't really cover the child so well. So what it's explaining over here is, no, you have to do it the other way. But basically what's going on over here is, here's the talis. So as we mentioned, the length is going to be the long way, right? We already did the demonstration. And the width is going to be the short way. And that's, of course, how you're going to do the itav as we showed. So if you were to take the talis katan that you're wearing, and even though we wear it the long way, but if you were to put it on the other way and do itav, so on your body, or I don't know if you're 9 years old, whoever's listening, but on a gadol's body, it doesn't cover your whole body. But if you were to take your talis katan and do itav on a 9-year-old, the way that we would do itav, then it would actually cover it, and that is pshat, that it covers the body. And we finished over here that the stipler was makbid to cut off all the loose strands in order to make sure that it was the corners were nice and clear, and as we showed that all our talesim cut clear off the corners for at least he says 10 centimeters, definitely 10 centimeters. I'll pick it up from here in the next year.